Good morning. This video I'm going to make some rocks. First question people might ask is, why would you make rocks? The first reason is when you don't know where you want to put the rocks are heavy. Here's another reason. This is a great looking rock, but I can't plant my plants in it. One good thing about rocks, though, is you can do that with them. And they're cool looking. And the birds like to climb on them. So, I make rocks. This is where I'm going to make a rock. On the aesthetic scale in the Aviary, I give it a 2. And because somebody asked, how do you make rocks? First thing I'm going to do is make a paper template of where the rock goes, because I have to do a lot of the work outside the aviary because the birds are in the aviary. So, think about this in advance. Sometimes is a good idea. Okay, that's what I came up with. All right, I'm going to pull that out, turn it into something that will make the form for the rock. Because I want to be able to stand on them, you have to have some kind of structure underneath the rocks. The epoxy is strong, but it's not strong enough to stand on. And if you make it about a 1/4 inch thick, by the time it dries, it will support its own weight. It won't sag or anything. It won't crack under its own weight, but then you can't climb on it. So for me, it's important to be able to climb on it. For that reason, I use recycled foam stuff inside of it. It's lightweight, it's really strong. If I'm making flat rocks like stepping stones, this stuff is perfect. You just break it however you want it and basically cover it. If I'm making a cliff, this stuff is perfect. So this will be pretty good. This is almost perfect for the back edge anyway, as is. If I'm making smaller rocks, sometimes the spray foam that you get for filling cracks can be a good starting point. One of my rocks I used a recycled styrofoam cooler that somebody had they wanted to get rid of, and I took that and kind of cut it up and reassembled it a little bit less square. Yeah, so again, you can use anything, but that's what I use, and the reason I use it is because it's light and it's strong and it will support my weight. Okay, so now I've got to turn that into the form that will go under the epoxy. You want to get roughly close to the shape you want because the epoxy will get heavy if it's too thick, and it's also expensive. Oh, and I should also mention, you can combine all these techniques. You can start with the flat stuff, and then you can spray foam in to fill gaps. You can carve this, you can carve the spray foam. I won't videotape that. That's just a matter of using a knife blade to score it and crack it, and I'm going to do that all outside so I don't scare the birds. For the hardscape in the aviary, I used the kind of foam that comes in, is liquid foam. It comes in 2 parts in a bag. It's used for replacement for the cement that you would set posts into. And I used that, but you have to build a form for that. You have to pour it into something, otherwise it just goes everywhere, basically. I'll try and show some pictures at least of where I used that foam. Okay, let's get to work. Okay, that's what I've got so far. Not an awesome rock, but good enough to take into the aviary and check. done some carving on this guy. Okay, so there's the new rock. I know, it doesn't look that good right now. I think what I'll do is turn it into the rock out here. That way the camera can be protected from the rain. And then by tomorrow, it'll be dry, and you can see how it works. I need to go change, and I need to mix up the epoxy. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so those are my two piles of epoxy. The white is grayish white is super sticky. The darker is super stinky. That is my epoxy extraction tool, also my shaping tool for making the rocks. And now mix, 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 mix. And you use folding powder to manage how sticky it is. So it's kind of like making dough. I mentioned that before. If you don't mix it well, it won't cure. So you have to mix it until they call it a solid color. You'll know it won't be a solid color because of the folding powder. It'll be shades of gray, as you see the final rocks are. But that's the next step. I'll get back to you when I've done that. I just realized there's a real rock on the right for comparison. All right, so the epoxy's mixed up. If you want a rough rock, then you just kind of put it on there and bang into it. Be careful of leaving fingerprint marks. You won't see it when it's wet, but then when it dries, it becomes really obvious that you've made it with your fingers. So hit with the palm of your hand or use something flat like the spatula. And if you want it really smooth, then you put folding powder on it and then you rub it like the bottom of the stream I made that way. Okay, here we go. Once you get some epoxy on your hands, you can get the folding powder to stick to your gloves. And I'm aiming for about a 1/4 inch thick-ish. And just get it on there. It's not like an emergency. It does start to harden, but not, you know, not right away. And you can work with it for a good long time. So I'm just gonna get it on there and worry about fine details later. You know, fine details. Don't put too much of the folding powder on when you want the pieces to stick to each other. You know, when I want to put it down here, don't because it can make it so it's not sticky. See what I mean about my finger? I don't know if you can see my fingerprints there. I think I mentioned in a previous video, you can add colorants to this. You can get a white version of this, and then you can add colorants to it, which I have not tried. I like this, I like the natural, I like the grays, the variation in the grays that you get without doing anything with this stuff so much that I don't even bother doing anything else. When I get this all together, then I will take a screwdriver, jam a hole in there, stick my plants in. Now, you know, this stuff is heavy. This is probably going to weigh 7 or 8 pounds. I'm guessing. I don't know.
It's not as heavy as a real rock, I can tell you that. Okay. I will be right back. I've got enough left over that I can do another little project, and that's not done yet. But, okay, here's a little side project. I have not liked the look of this guy for a long time. It goes at the base of, I kind of like it where it is. It goes at the base of the big tree, but I don't like that I can see all this stuff. So, I'm going to do that. All right, I need my gloves back. So one of the nice things about the epoxy, I don't want to get these all dirty, is that you can add to it later. And because I want this to be heavy anyway, I'm going to use a good chunk of epoxy. So this is going to be an expensive little planter. But it will make me happy. So why not? All right, so kind of that's the direction. I don't think I need quite that much, but well, since it's all sticky anyway. Make it less sticky on the foliage, I'll just put a little extra powder on it. And get that out of the rain if I can. And now that just dries. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Okay, so now this guy. All I really need to do on this guy, keep my hair out of it. I'm getting off the stuff that's unmixed, because the unmixed material will cause problems, and it won't cure. Okay. So now, okay, let's go. I'm trying to debate whether I have time to put plants in or not. I think what I should do is leave it. Nope. Nope. Okay. So I'm going to use a screwdriver to poke through the epoxy and through into the foam, which is kind of tough stuff. And then I just insert the plants where I want them. By now the epoxy is somewhat stiff, so it holds fairly well, I would say. I used to let it dry and then drill it out, but it was, I mentioned before, it's kind of a pain. Okay, so that's that part, but I know plants don't grow directly out of rocks, so I think that always looks funny. So then I hide that. With more plants. Okay. Well, let's see. All right. I usually like more variety. And I might add some other plants later. Okay. Good morning. It's cold. So, it's heavy enough, but it's not lifting a rock either. Okay, let's go put it in. Don't freak out. All right, how does that look? I know, there's poop everywhere. All right. That's better than seeing the test tubes. Now, let's turn our attention to that space. Now, there's a little bit of a gap behind that I need to fill. Okay. So that's better than seeing the holders for my sticks. I can still pull them out. I could cover that seam a little bit better as well if I was so inclined, but I don't know that I will. I got to put that plant back in. So I think I'll do that right now. Like, give me a second, okay? Yeah, thanks. I've mentioned in a lot of videos that one of the things that I like the best about my rocks is that I don't know what I'm doing. So I can try stuff and see if it looks like it's going to work for the birds or if it's going to work, for whatever function or just visually. And I can change it all the time. And there's my other one. Okay, well, that's the technique that I think might work for you, Lisa, based on what I thought you were describing you wanted to do. So hopefully that helps you beginning to end visualize whether it might be a good approach. And Lena is going to poke my eyeballs out if I do not go get her some bugs. So I got to go do that. Meanwhile, I solved a couple of problems in the aviary, so thanks for the incentive.